There is a strange moment sometimes, in the late hours of the night. A moment when your body feels heavier than usual, as if every muscle has suddenly remembered its own ancient history. You lie there, half awake, half drifting, and you become dimly aware of something soft brushing your skin. The faint texture of a blanket, the quiet warmth of your own breath, the subtle hum of your body trying to relax. And in that hazy moment, you may notice something that seems so ordinary, yet so deeply mysterious once the mind touches it. Your skin is bare, not smooth like polished stone, not covered in scales, not armored like the creatures of the sea, not wrapped in feathers like the guardians of the sky, and not dressed in the dense protective fur that coats almost every other mammal we once lived beside. Your skin is exposed, warm, soft, vulnerable, and profoundly human. It is one of the first things a child notices when comparing themselves to animals. It is one of the last things an elderly person feels when blankets are gently tucked around them. It is the ever-present barrier between the world and the body, yet it reveals more than it hides. But why is it bare at all? Why are we the naked ape in a world built for fur? Not long ago, at least on the scale of human evolution, we were part of the wild in a way that feels almost dreamlike now. We slept under open skies, huddled around flames, moved across forests and grasslands without maps or names. The wind that moved through the trees was the same wind that touched our skin. But long before writing, long before myth, long before the first stone tool gleamed under firelight, our ancestors underwent a transformation that sets us apart from every other mammal our size. They lost their fur. Gradually, irreversibly, mysteriously. Tonight, you and I will walk backward through that mystery, slowly, quietly, the way one walks through a dream. But before we begin, I want you to do something for me. Take a slow breath, and another, and notice where you are in this precise moment. Are you lying in a dark bedroom, listening from a couch as your mind drifts? Curled beneath a blanket somewhere quiet? Perhaps resting in a small apartment in a busy city, or in a quiet house on the edge of a forest? Or somewhere far across the world with night falling gently around you? Let me know in the comments where you are listening from tonight. Your messages from so many countries always remind me of how connected this late-night community is. A quiet constellation of people who love history, mystery, and the soft unraveling of ancient stories while drifting towards sleep. Now, settle in. Adjust your pillows. Let your breathing fall into a natural rhythm, and let the day fade behind you as we begin gently, step by step, into a time before humans were humans. Because the story of our bare skin is not a simple one. It is not a single event, nor a single adaptation. It is a long, winding, ancient transition, woven through climate, survival, behavior, and chance. And underneath it all, there is something almost philosophical, almost poetic, about how we became the only mammal who carries the sky directly against our skin. Close your eyes if you wish. Picture a night thousands upon thousands of years ago, long before cities, or writing, or even language, when our early ancestors stood beneath a vast African sky glittering with starlight. No artificial lights, no engines, no fences, just the soft hiss of grass and the gentle crackle of a small fire that keeps the darkness at the edge of the world. Imagine their silhouettes, lean, alert, bodies shaped by the rhythm of day and night, wind brushing over their skin as if the world itself is learning to recognize them. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the sound of a fire that burned in the early dusk, the whisper of flame against wood, the shifting of embers glowing orange in the quiet. The world was changing even then. Fur was thinning, skins were cooling. But this transformation did not begin in firelight. It began far earlier, in a hot, open world where the forests our ancestors once lived in began to thin, leaving wide, blazing grasslands stretched beneath a relentless sun. Most mammals adapt to heat by panting, shedding, hiding in shade. But our ancestors did something different, something unusual, something almost reckless. They stood up. Not suddenly, not as a single moment, but over countless generations. The spine straightened, the pelvis rotated, the head lifted higher above the grass. And when they stood upright, their bodies faced a new challenge: how to cool down under a sun that never relented. Standing meant moving in open terrain, far from the sheltering canopy. Standing meant being exposed. Standing meant needing a new way to survive heat. The first great shift in human skin was not hair loss, it was sweat. Millions of tiny glands cover the human body, each one capable of releasing moisture to cool us through evaporation. It is one of the most powerful cooling systems in nature, but sweat works best on bare skin. Imagine trying to cool a thick-furred creature by dampening its hair. The moisture gets trapped, heat gets sealed in, the body overheats. But a creature with bare skin can cool down while running for hours. And our ancestors did run. Not fast, not gracefully, but relentlessly, long distances over grasslands in midday heat that predators avoided. Some researchers propose that humans became persistence hunters, not catching prey through speed, but through endurance, running until the animal overheated. Bare skin, powerful sweating, and a long, upright stride formed a trilogy of adaptations that gave early humans a strange advantage. They became creatures of the sun. But the sun is unforgiving, and bare skin must adapt. Melanin, the pigment that darkens skin, became one of our greatest shields. It protected the body from ultraviolet rays that could destroy DNA and weaken the immune system. The darkest skin emerged in the brightest lands, not by intention, not by choice, but by the slow mathematics of survival. Hair thinned, skin darkened, sweat glands multiplied, and eventually, the fur that once covered our bodies became unnecessary. Still, it did not disappear entirely. Look closely at your arm in soft light. Tilt it slightly. You will see tiny, delicate hairs, the faintest echo of a coat we once carried. But why did we lose so much more hair than other mammals? That is where the story deepens. Sweat was one reason. Sunlight was another. But other forces moved quietly beneath the surface, each altering the body in ways our ancestors could never have predicted. One of them was touch. Bare skin communicates in ways fur cannot. A gentle hand on the arm, a warm body held in comfort. The delicate sensitivity to wind, temperature, texture, closeness. Some anthropologists propose that hairlessness strengthened social bonds. Carrying infants against bare skin calmed them, regulated their temperature, synchronized their heartbeat with the parents. Skin-to-skin contact may have been a silent language before speech existed. If you imagine an early mother holding her newborn in the shade of an acacia tree, the baby's cheek resting against her bare chest, you can almost sense how deeply physical closeness shaped early human life. Another force was identity. Hair displays status in many animals: manes, ruffs, coats, colors. But humans found new ways to communicate identity. Expressive faces, complex gestures, vocal sounds, eventually symbols. As faces became more expressive, hair withdrew from them, leaving our brows bare, our cheeks smooth, our foreheads unhidden. Every loss was connected to a gain. The more hair vanished, the more the skin became a canvas for emotion. Flush, pallor, warmth, trembling, all visible to the eyes of others. Imagine early humans living in small bands, learning to read each other's expressions not through scent alone, but through subtle changes in the face itself. Hairless faces made empathy possible. Hairless bodies made endurance possible. Hairless skin made touch meaningful. And slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years, a new creature emerged, one whose identity was shaped by its own vulnerability. Yet vulnerability was strength. Without fur, our ancestors learned to weave grasses, scrape hides, craft shelters, create fire to warm the night. The loss of fur did not weaken humanity. It forced humanity to invent. You pause here, breathing slowly, as the ancient world shifts around you in your imagination. Night falls over the savannah. Insects hum softly. The silhouette of early humans moves around a fire, their bare skin glowing in shifting amber light. Shadows dancing along their limbs like spirits whispering about the future. They are unaware that millions of years later, another human will sit far from that fire and wonder why their body bears the same softness of skin that once shivered beneath a star-filled sky. You step slowly deeper into the story. The loss of fur transformed the human relationship with the world. Bare skin demanded protection, not grown, but created. So our ancestors crafted clothing. Simple at first, wrapped hides, woven grasses, then more complex as intelligence sharpened. Clothing was not just warmth. It was identity, culture, ritual. Clothing became a second skin, shaped by human intention instead of evolution. The body lost hair, the mind made clothing. The species evolved from natural insulation to artificial protection. Every other mammal wears the world's design. Only humans design their own covering. This is one of the most profound shifts in the animal kingdom. Something else was happening in parallel. Something quiet and biological. Parasites. Lice, ticks, fleas. They thrive in dense fur. Bare skin made it easier to detect and remove parasites. It reduced disease. It gave survival advantages in hot climates. But then something unusual occurred. Even as body hair vanished, head hair did not. Scalp hair became longer, thicker, more symbolic. Some scholars believe it protected the brain from sun exposure. Others believe it became a tool for social recognition, a visible banner of identity that survived long after fur disappeared. Body hair thinned, but head hair flourished. This imbalance created the human silhouette, a shape distinct from every other creature on Earth. All of this, piece by piece, forms the evolutionary mosaic of how humans lost their fur. But the deeper truth, the softer truth, the one that drifts like a quiet wind through the ancient world, is that losing fur shaped not just our survival, but our consciousness. Bare skin made humans sensitive to the world, to temperature, to wind, to touch, to closeness, to danger, to comfort. Sensitivity shaped awareness. Awareness shaped behavior. Behavior shaped mind. And slowly, the naked ape became the thinking ape. As you lie where you are now, listening in the quiet, with your own bare skin touching sheets or blankets or air, you are feeling the ancient inheritance of millions of years of adaptation. Sensitivity is not weakness. It is the foundation of humanity. And yet, the story is not complete. Not yet. Because after the loss of fur, another transformation began. One that shaped migration, culture, art, identity, and the future of our species. We will explore that in the next segment. For now, let your breath soften. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the story settle like warm dust over ancient earth. And when you're ready for the next chapter in this long, gentle journey through human evolution, the fire in your mind still glows faintly as the ancient grasslands fade into view again. Those long, wind-swept plains where our ancestors first learned to move differently, sense differently, survive differently. Their bodies changed, but so did the quiet world around them. Nights were longer then. Stars felt closer. The sky was an entire cathedral of shimmering cold light. You can almost hear the wind brushing over endless savanna, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant rain. Imagine once more that small group of early humans, bare skin reflecting moonlight, muscles lean from endurance, eyes bright with the alert stillness of creatures who must watch the world closely to remain alive. They were not yet people in the way we think of ourselves now, but they were not animals either. They stood at the threshold of something new, the earliest spark of consciousness flickering behind their gaze. Bare skin made them aware of the elements in a way fur never could. Every breeze was felt. Every shift in temperature mattered. Warmth was something to seek, not something guaranteed. Shade was essential. Shelter was essential. Fire, when they learned to coax it from sparks, became an anchor, not just for heat or protection, but for something deeper, a sense of place, a circle of light around which identity slowly formed. The loss of fur had started something new. It shaped how humans slept. Animals with thick fur curl into themselves at night, relying on their natural insulation. But our ancestors, with bare skin, needed the warmth of others. They slept together, limbs touching, bodies arranged in quiet intimacy, sharing heat, comfort, safety. This closeness formed bonds before language existed, before names existed, before stories existed. Bare skin against bare skin was the first human community. Touch became the earliest form of communication, a hand resting gently on an arm, a body leaning closer for warmth, a child pressing its cheek against a parent's chest. These were the first messages humanity ever sent. You can imagine a cold night, wind carrying the distant cry of some nocturnal predator, the stars shimmering hard and bright overhead, and a small cluster of humans curled together in a nest of grass and leaves. Their breathing rises and falls in unison. The fire cracks softly beside them. Someone shifts. Someone sighs. Someone opens their eyes briefly to scan the dark. This was sleep before walls, before roofs, before mattresses and blankets and all the things we now take for granted. And it was bare skin that made sleep sacred. The next morning, as dawn spills across the plains in soft gold, they rise slowly. The cool air brushes their skin, and their bodies respond immediately. Goosebumps ripple along arms and legs, a reflex older than humanity itself, a leftover instinct meant to raise fur that is no longer there. Even now, you can feel that same reaction in your own flesh, though your ancestors' fur vanished millions of years ago. The question lingers in your mind: why did we keep such a reflex at all? Because evolution rarely erases everything. It leaves echoes. It leaves traces. It leaves reminders. Humans are full of such remnants: wisdom teeth, tailbones, chill bumps, hair that stands on end when we're afraid. Our bodies are museums of the past. But the loss of fur was not a simple erasure. It was the beginning of a new kind of intelligence. To understand how, imagine another scene. It is midday now. The sun is high and merciless. The grass shimmers in waves of heat. Other animals hide in the shade, lions sprawled beneath thorn trees, hyenas panting in burrows, antelope conserving energy. But the early humans move, slowly, steadily, relentlessly. Their bodies glisten with sweat, evaporating as they walk, cooling them as they track prey across the plains. Their bare skin radiates heat more efficiently than fur ever could. Their upright posture exposes less surface area to the sun. Their long stride conserves energy. And their breath moves steadily, not as a desperate panting, but as the quiet, rhythmic airflow of endurance creatures. This ability, to keep moving when everything else rests, may have been one of the greatest advantages early humans ever developed. It required bare skin. It required sweat. It required a body transformed by heat. Imagine tracking an animal for hours, not running it down with speed, but wearing it down through persistence, watching it tire in the sun, until finally it can no longer flee. This was not a battle of claws or teeth. It was a battle of patience, of endurance, of biology. And bare skin made it possible. But evolution rarely gives without taking. Bare skin made our ancestors vulnerable to cold, to injury, to insects, to exposure, to sunburn, to nighttime winds. Every benefit carried a cost. So early humans adapted again. They built shelters. They used fire. They crafted coverings from animal hides. They learned to sleep in safer places. They learned to stay warm. The loss of fur forced creativity. It forced planning. It forced foresight. Bare skin didn't just shape biology, it shaped mind. You pause here, picturing the subtle ways evolution nudged human thought. Heat forced movement. Movement forced exploration. Exploration forced memory. Memory forced communication. Communication forced language. Language allowed story. And story changed everything. But before language truly emerged, another quiet transformation took place. One that feels almost invisible, yet it reshaped the human face forever. While body hair thinned, facial hair evolved differently. On men, it grew fuller, likely as a signal of maturity, status, identity. On women, it receded, revealing expressions more clearly. The human face became a canvas of emotion, a place where joy, fear, confusion, affection, and intent were visible. The loss of fur allowed the rise of empathy. It is difficult to read the expression of a creature covered in fur. It is easy to read the expression of a bare face. Our ancestors learned to see meaning in the smallest shift of eyebrows, the faintest twitch of lips, the softest widening of eyes. Expression became communication long before speech found its shape. Picture a young child frowning near a patch of poisonous berries. A mother need not speak. A simple tightening of her brow communicated danger. Picture a young hunter reassured by the calm, quiet eyes of his companions before a difficult task. Bare faces shaped cooperation. Cooperation shaped society. Society shaped humanity. The story of hairlessness is the story of connection. And yet, something odd remains. Humans did not lose all their hair. Head hair persisted, pubic hair persisted, eyebrows persisted, eyelashes persisted. Why? Each patch of hair serves its own purpose. Each tells a different story about survival. Head hair protects the skull from heat. Eyebrows divert sweat from the eyes. Eyelashes guard against dust and insects. Pubic hair reduces friction, traps scent that once guided attraction, and protects sensitive skin. The body became mostly hairless, but not completely. Evolution never deals in absolutes. It deals in usefulness. So why did humans not simply keep a thin coat like many other primates? Why so bare? One theory speaks of parasites. One speaks of heat. One speaks of endurance. One speaks of mating signals. One speaks of the birth canal, the idea that hairless babies slip through more easily. And one speaks of water. Some scientists propose that our ancestors spent long enough in shallow coastal waters that hairlessness became advantageous. Less drag in water, better thermoregulation, a diet rich in shellfish and marine nutrients that shaped brain development. This aquatic phase is controversial, debated, uncertain, and yet not impossible. Imagine early humans wading through warm tidal zones, gathering shellfish, spending hours in water under hot sun, developing subcutaneous fat, losing fur. It is a compelling image, one that echoes faintly across human physiology. But whether this aquatic phase is real or not, the truth remains. Hairlessness marked the beginning of a new way of living. Bare skin led to clothing, clothing led to identity, identity led to culture, culture led to meaning. A furred creature lives as the world shapes it. A hairless creature shapes the world. You breathe slowly, deeply, letting the story wash over you like warm air on ancient plains. Night falls again in your imagination. The savannah grows dark. A soft wind moves through tall grass with a gentle, whispering hush. You can see early humans gather around a fire, their faces illuminated, their bodies casting long shadows against the earth. Someone stirs the embers. Sparks rise into the sky. Brightness, like tiny stars returning to their home. A child leans into a parent's side. Bare skin touches bare skin. Warmth passes between them. And in that moment, the world feels simple. A world shaped not by fear or noise, but by the quiet rhythm of breath, fire, wind, and connection. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl calls. A distant rustle hints at some passing animal, but the humans are safe inside the circle of firelight. Their bare skin glows softly. Their minds drift. Their bodies rest. The fur that their ancestors once carried is long gone, but what it was replaced with is far more extraordinary. A mind that can imagine tomorrow. A voice that can tell stories. A heart that can care. A body that can endure. A spirit that can wonder. The transformation from fur to skin is not simply evolutionary, it is symbolic. It marks the shift from instinct to intention, from reaction to imagination. Hairlessness made humans the most exposed creatures on Earth, and therefore the most adaptive. Without nature's armor, we built our own. And now, thousands of years later, our bare skin rests gently under soft fabric and warm lamplight, while we tell ancient stories in the quiet hours of the night. There is still more to explore, much more. How did hairlessness shape human migration as our ancestors left Africa? How did clothing evolve from necessity into culture? What secrets do genetics reveal about when and how our fur disappeared? And what does our skin say about the next chapter of human evolution? We will walk deeper into those questions in the next segment. For now, let the quiet settle again. Let your breath fall into a calm rhythm. Let your body grow heavier, your mind grow softer, your awareness drift. The fire in your mind's eye softens into a low glow, a pool of amber light hovering in the vastness of an ancient night. The early humans around it begin to fade, not vanishing, but drifting into the haze of memory, like silhouettes sinking slowly into the long grass as the world around them turns colder, darker, more mysterious. Because the story of how humans lost their fur does not end in Africa. It stretches outward, across continents, across climates, across tens of thousands of years, until bare skin became a canvas painted by the sun, the wind, the cold, and the imagination of the people who inherited it. Picture an early group of humans beginning to wander north, not in a single migration, but in gentle waves across millennia. The air grows cooler here, the nights stretch longer, the sun becomes a softer presence in the sky. Grasslands give way to woodlands, and woodlands give way to colder plains, where seasons shift in ways our ancestors had never seen. Their bare skin meets a new challenge: winter. Cold that bites, wind that pierces, snow that numbs fingers and toes and slows the pulse. In this new world, the absence of fur becomes dangerous. But instead of reversing evolution, instead of regrowing the coat they lost, early humans did something unprecedented. They created their own fur. At first, it was simple: a hide draped over shoulders, a rough wrap tied around the waist, a patch of animal skin held with sinew against the chest. Picture a small group of early humans walking across a frozen plain, their bodies wrapped in layers of gathered hide and scraped leather, the edges stiff from cold and softened by use. The wind may howl across the tundra, but the group continues forward, slow, steady, minds warmed by purpose. Clothing became the first human invention that changed evolution itself. Once people could warm their bodies artificially, there was no longer a biological need to regrow a thick fur coat. The skin remained bare, and culture took over where evolution stepped back. You can almost see a small shelter leaning against a giant boulder, branches woven together, packed with grass and hide to block the wind. Inside, a small fire burns. Its warmth hugs the walls. Shadows flicker across the faces of the people gathered there. A child sleeps, wrapped in hide, bare cheek pressed against its parent's chest. A man sharpens a flint tool. A woman chews animal sinew to soften it for thread. Another tends the fire, feeding it with careful hands to keep the cold's edge at bay. Bare skin, once a vulnerability, became a source of creativity. It forced humans to build, to discover, to innovate, to shape the world rather than be shaped by it. Evolution offered the blank page. Humanity wrote the rest. Let that thought settle in your mind: how unusual it is for a species to invent its own adaptation. Clothing, shelters, fire, communal warmth. These inventions allowed humans to step into climates other mammals avoided. And so the migrations continued. Across valleys, across deserts, across mountains, across ice sheets. Bare skin travelling into lands where winter lasted half a year and summer whispered only briefly before retreating again. And as humans moved, their skin adapted again. Dark skin lightened in regions where UV rays were scarce. This wasn't about beauty, it was about survival. To produce enough vitamin D in northern climates, skin needed to let in more sunlight. This slow shift was not a rejection of the old world. It was a quiet accommodation to a new one. The body adjusts. The world changes. People continue, generation after generation. You breathe in slowly, feeling a deep connection with the long, unbroken line that leads from those early wanderers to you. Imagine standing beneath a winter sky 20,000 years ago, snow drifting gently through the air, dark pines rising like ancient guardians, the breath of your companions curling upward like spirits in the cold night. Your skin is bare beneath your clothing. Your hands hold a carved bone tool. Your eyes reflect firelight. And above you, the constellations look the same as they do tonight. Humans changed, but the sky did not. Another breath, another image. Now imagine the southern regions again, the birthplace of humanity. The open plains, the warm air, the sun rising in gold and descending in red, the scent of grass moving like waves across the horizon. There, bare skin glowed with melanin, a natural shield, a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering shaped by necessity and time. Thousands of miles away, in colder lands, the same bare skin grew paler to drink in more sunlight. But regardless of color, regardless of climate, all human skin shared the same fundamental truth. It was exposed. It felt the world directly. It sensed danger, warmth, touch, comfort. It carried our identity, our emotions, our history. The story of furlessness is the story of sensitivity. Bare skin allowed humans to feel the world in ways other animals could not. It made the body a map of sensation, a place where wind and warmth carve meaning. And this sensitivity did more than shape behavior. It shaped art. Imagine an early human pressing a hand against a cave wall, palm coated in pigment, leaving a print that still exists today in the dark chambers of ancient shelters. That hand, bare, warm, sensitive, was a declaration: I am alive. Breath moves slowly inside you as you imagine the gesture. Soft, deliberate, human. Now imagine the first bead necklaces carved from bone or shell. Their surfaces smooth under fingertips. They clink gently against bare skin as the wearer walks. Or picture a group of early humans lining their bodies with ochre, a symbol of identity, status, ritual, or simply self-expression. Bare skin made art possible. A body covered in dense fur cannot be painted, cannot be adorned, cannot display the symbolic language that became the root of culture. Bare skin invited imagination, and imagination built humanity. Let your thoughts drift with that idea, the soft merging of biology and creativity. A coat of fur isolates a creature from the world. Bare skin connects it. Every shift has meaning. Even now, your skin absorbs details you don't consciously notice. The temperature of the room, the softness of fabric, the rise and fall of your breath, the slight pressure of where your body rests. Your skin is not a barrier, it is an interface. It communicates constantly with your mind, with others, with the world. But the story continues, because hairlessness also transformed how humans raised children. Bare skin made infants physically dependent on caregivers for warmth and comfort. This dependency strengthened social bonds. Mothers held babies close. Fathers carried children against their chests. Grandparents soothed little ones with quiet touches near firelight. These rituals, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat, became the foundation of empathy. Empathy is not a trait of furred creatures who live alone. It is a trait of beings who depend on touch. And empathy shapes cooperation. Cooperation shapes society. Society shapes survival. Bare skin made humanity gentle when it mattered most. Not with predators, but with each other. Picture a group of early humans after a long day of travel. They gather around a fire, sharing warmth, passing food, exchanging quiet glances that say more than words ever could. They understand each other through subtle shifts in skin, the way cheeks flush, the way eyes soften, the way a hand reaches out in reassurance. This sensitivity became the seed of complex emotion. Now imagine humanity without bare skin. Imagine us with fur, expressions hidden, touch dulled, art impossible, communication muted. Everything that makes us human would be different. Vulnerability gave rise to invention, connection, feeling, meaning. And so the loss of fur became the beginning of our story. Still, a mystery remains. If nakedness was so advantageous, why are we the only primate to lose so much hair? Why didn't other apes follow the same evolutionary path? The answer drifts somewhere between biology and chance. Other primates remained in shaded forests, where heat was less dangerous and parasites less overwhelming. Early humans, on the other hand, ventured into open savannas where the sun demanded adaptation. But perhaps there was something else, something harder to quantify. A spark. Not a literal spark, but an inner shift, the subtle movement of mind toward awareness. Hairlessness made the body expressive. An expressive body made thoughts visible. Visible thoughts shaped communication. Communication shaped culture. Bare skin may have accelerated the emergence of self-awareness. As humans looked at each other, they did not see fur. They saw faces, expressions, emotions. They saw themselves. And seeing oneself is the birth of identity, the birth of imagination, the birth of myth. Perhaps bare skin did not simply allow awareness to evolve. Perhaps it invited it. You pause here, breathing in slow rhythm with the quiet unfolding of the story. All of this, the migrations, the cultural innovations, the emotional evolution, took place over vast expanses of time, so slow and gentle that no single ancestor would have seen the change. But you see it now. You can feel it like a soft wind passing through the long arc of human history. Bare skin shaped tools. Tools shaped environments. Environments shaped thought. Thought shaped society. Society shaped meaning. And meaning is what defines humanity. There is still one more layer to this transformation. how hairlessness influenced the way humans saw beauty, identity, and one another. That is where we will go in the next segment. For now, take a slow breath. Feel your body sink a little deeper and let the long story of your own evolution wrap around you like a warm blanket. The night deepens around the ancient human world as the fire in your imagination flickers lower, its glow spreading across the quiet camp like a warm breath. Shapes move softly in the dimness, bare shoulders gleaming faintly, hair falling loosely across faces, hands stirring embers or adjusting hides pulled gently across the body. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the soft rustle of wind sweeping across the savannah, carrying with it the scent of dry earth, crushed grass, and distant storms. In this half-lit place, this threshold between dream and memory, another piece of the story slowly rises like a moon climbing the horizon. How hairlessness shaped human beauty and human identity. Because somewhere along the millions of years between the forests of early ancestors and the modern world you live in, humans began to look at each other in a new way. Not as predators, not as prey, not as anonymous bodies in the landscape, but as individuals. A mother recognized her child not by scent, but by the unique curve of the cheeks, the softened roundness of the brow, the delicate creases around the eyes. A partner recognized their companion not by fur patterns or musk, but by the expression in their face, the warmth of their skin, the sound of their voice. Hairlessness made humans identifiable in a way no other mammal is. With fur, creatures look similar. Without fur, each face is unmistakably its own. That individuality shaped early concepts of attraction, trust, and affection. Imagine two early humans sitting close to the fire, not speaking, but watching each other with quiet curiosity. The flame reflecting softly in their bare skin, revealing expressions, intentions, and a kind of social awareness that had never existed before. Bare skin revealed emotion. Emotion guided connection. Connection guided mating. Mating guided evolution. Over time, humans did not simply lose fur. They selected partners who communicated well through expression, who calmed others through touch, who moved with confidence, who showed intent, who displayed gentleness. These traits had nothing to do with fur. They had everything to do with skin. In this sense, the loss of body hair did not happen to humanity. Humanity co-created it. Bare skin became part of what humans valued, and slowly, across generations beyond counting, the absence of fur became the human form. But another force worked quietly beside attraction. Climate continued to shape bodies. Children born into colder lands grew broader, with stockier forms that held warmth. Those in warmer lands grew leaner, with longer limbs that dissipated heat. Yet through all these variations, the skin remained visible. The fur did not return. Why? Because culture had become our protection. Our bodies no longer needed fur when our minds provided clothing, when fire provided heat, when shelters provided refuge. Evolution does not add what culture replaces. And so the human species became an unusual combination, biologically vulnerable, culturally adaptable. Now imagine a different moment. Not firelight, not deep night. Picture an early human standing by a river at dawn. The water is cool, lapping gently against the sand. Mist hovers above the surface, glowing faintly with sunrise. The human kneels, touches the water, and sees their reflection not as a blur hidden beneath fur, but as a face that belongs to them, a face that carries emotion, a face that reveals identity in a way no animal face does. Self-recognition deepened. Bare skin invited awareness of the self. This might seem like a small thing, a ripple in the tides of evolution, but the ability to recognize oneself in a reflection opens a path inward. It is the beginning of introspection, and introspection is the beginning of imagination. When the mind sees itself, it begins to ask, who am I? How do others see me? What do I wish to be? What do I fear becoming? What does my body mean? These questions shaped the earliest rituals, the first forms of decoration, the painting of bodies with ochre, the adornment of hair with feathers or beads, the invention of clothing not just for warmth, but for meaning. Bare skin allowed symbolism. A stripe of red clay across the chest could signal courage. A circle of paint around the eyes could symbolize vision. Ash across the arms could signify transition or loss. Body art emerged as one of the oldest and most universal human practices, older even than agriculture, older than most tools. And it was only possible because skin was exposed. Hairless bodies became canvases. The world's first form of art was not carved stone or cave painting. It was the human body itself. Even today, you carry echoes of that tradition. The desire to express identity through hairstyles, tattoos, piercings, makeup, jewelry, clothing. The impulse to adorn is ancient, almost instinctive. It connects you to people who lived tens of thousands of years before your time. Bare skin continues to shape culture, fashion, gender expression, identity, beauty, and even power dynamics. But in the beginning, long before meaning grew complex, the connection was simple. Bare skin allowed touch. Touch allowed bonding. Bonding allowed trust. Trust allowed cooperation. Cooperation allowed survival. Survival allowed humanity. It is astonishing how much of our evolution can be traced back to the simple fact that our skin was exposed. Expose something and it becomes vulnerable. Vulnerability invites connection. Connection invites complexity. Complexity invites meaning. And meaning is the soil in which culture grows. Take one more slow breath. Feel the warmth across your own skin. Feel the gentle pressure of gravity. Feel the surface beneath your body. You are touching the world with the same bare skin your ancestors once carried into cold nights and warm days. But the story is still unfolding. There is another quiet transformation, often overlooked, yet deeply tied to the mystery of hairlessness. A transformation within the brain. As our ancestors lost fur, as their skin became exposed, as they depended more on one another for warmth, survival, and emotional connection, their brains grew, not just in size, but in complexity. Cooperation required planning. Planning required memory. Memory required communication. Communication required abstraction. the human mind expanded to fill the spaces that fur once protected. Bare skin forced vulnerability. Vulnerability forced community. Community forced intelligence. Evolution is not a straight line. It is a dialogue, a negotiation, a slow conversation between survival and possibility. And the possibility that hairlessness opened was extraordinary. It made humans the only mammal that must craft its own environment with thought and intention. Shelters, tools, clothing, fire, art, symbolic language, myth, society. All of these grew more elaborate because the body became fragile. Fragility breeds ingenuity. You pause again, letting the implications settle. The loss of fur did not make humans weaker. It made humans aware of cold, of heat, of each other, of themselves, of the world. Awareness becomes reflection. Reflection becomes story. Story becomes identity. And so, evolution moved inward. The next part of the journey carries us far forward, to the first true humans, to the expansion across continents, and to the way bare skin intertwined with culture to create the species we recognize today. There is more to explore, much more. But for now, breathe slowly, letting the ancient world fade and reform like drifting mist. The world shifts again around you, softly, gradually, the way a dream rearranges itself while you're still inside it. The ancient savannas fade, replaced by wide plains touched by new winds, new colors, new shadows. Early humans are no longer the small, vulnerable figures clustered around a lone fire. They are becoming travelers, migrants shaped by curiosity as much as necessity. Bare skin glows faintly under different skies now, sometimes golden with sunlight, sometimes pale with moonrise, sometimes flushed with cold, sometimes warmed by fire, sometimes pressed against another body for comfort. This sensitivity, this exposure, continues to shape their story. Imagine a group moving along the edge of a river, the water reflecting a long trail of stars. Their feet press into damp earth. The scent of freshwater plants drifts upward. Crickets hum softly in the twilight. Bare ankles brush against wild grasses still wet from evening dew. In this moment, the world touches them directly. Every shift in temperature, every blade of grass, every drop of water is felt by their skin. And the brain, over countless generations, learns to interpret these sensations. Touch becomes knowledge. Skin becomes memory. Now imagine a different landscape. The foothills of a mountain range where the air grows thin and the temperature drops with every step upward. There is snow here, not deep, but enough to sting when touched. Early humans learned to survive in cold without fur. They wrapped themselves in hides stitched together with bone needles, softened by hands, shaped by instinct and necessity. But even beneath layers of clothing, their skin remained exposed to momentary gusts of wind, to icy breath in the air, to the sharp bite of frost. This exposure taught caution, it taught planning, it taught cooperation. A single person cannot build shelter alone in a blizzard. A single person cannot warm a freezing child without the help of another. Bare skin encouraged what furred animals often lack: mutual dependence. Picture a group huddled together inside a small hut of branches, animal hides stretched across the roof, snow piled around the walls. Their breath warms the space, their bodies radiate heat, their hands move gently, passing food, sharing warmth, comforting one another. This dependence became culture, not through force, not through rules, but through survival. Without fur, humans learned to rely on the minds, hands, and hearts of other humans. Bare skin made isolation deadly, it made community essential. Generations later, this would become the foundation of tribes, clans, villages, relationships, and all the subtle social structures that define humanity today. As the world cooled during glacial periods and warmed during interglacial ones, the skin adapted continuously. In bright equatorial lands, melanin remained deep and protective. In dim northern lands, skin grew lighter to absorb more sunlight. Yet, throughout all these changes, the body remained mostly hairless. It's worth pausing here, breathing slowly, feeling your own skin against the air, and letting one question move gently through your thoughts. Why didn't evolution ever bring the fur back? Even in cold regions, where warmth meant survival, humans adapted with clothing instead of growing new insulation. Clothing could be removed, adjusted, shared, customized. Fur could not. Clothing evolved with the mind, not the body. This unusual combination, a fragile body with a flexible brain, became the hallmark of human evolution. The world changed, and instead of changing with it, humans changed the world. Bare skin played the central role. Now picture early humans leaving Africa entirely, crossing into the Middle East, splitting into waves that spread into Asia, Europe, and beyond. Each group carried the same biology, the same sweat glands, the same sensitivity, the same vulnerability. But each would meet a different world. The sun in the Arabian Peninsula burned fiercely, lighting the land in an almost blinding glare. Humans there kept their deeply pigmented skin a natural armor. Far north, in icy Europe, hazelnut forests stretched against glaciers, and winters darkened the sky for much of the year. There, skin gradually brightened, not because of beauty or preference, but because it became necessary for survival. Darkly pigmented skin blocked too much UV in regions with weak sunlight. Without enough UV, the body struggled to make vitamin D, vital for bones, teeth, and immune strength. So lighter skin emerged, generation after generation, as a quiet solution to a quiet problem. It wasn't about superiority, it wasn't about difference, it was simply adaptation. The human palette of skin tones was shaped by the earth itself, by latitude, by sunlight, by climate. It remains one of the most beautiful examples of evolution responding gently, precisely, over deep time. All of this, the migrations, the adaptations, the inventions, took place over so long a span that no single ancestor understood it was happening. But now, as you listen in the quiet, you can trace the entire arc in the soft rise and fall of your own breathing. Humanity became a species without fur because a furless body opened doors to a new kind of existence, one of thought, one of expression, one of imagination. Bare skin didn't simply change how humans survived, it changed how humans perceived. Imagine walking through a forest 20,000 years ago, your feet brushing against moss, your hands touching cold bark, your face lifted into a light snowfall. Your skin absorbs sensation like language. It informs your body in ways you do not even consciously register. Bare skin is a constant listener. It reads the world continuously, and the brain responds. Over time, this sensitivity shaped not just behavior, but awareness. The exposed human body is a gateway to the environment. Touch became one of the earliest and most profound forms of knowing. Before words, there was sensation. Before symbols, there was warmth. Before myth, there was the feeling of a hand resting softly against another. It is tempting to think that intelligence appeared suddenly, a spark in a dark landscape. But intelligence grew slowly from the necessities of a vulnerable body. To survive without fur, early humans needed to think. They needed to anticipate. They needed to plan. They needed to communicate. They needed to teach. They needed to comfort. These are not traits of animals covered in thick coats that shield them from the world. These are traits of beings who must shape the world with their own minds. And so, a fragile body became the cradle of a powerful mind. Bare skin was the beginning of self-domestication, not domesticated by another species, but by our own habits, our own communities, our own inventions. Our bodies stopped adapting to the environment alone. Instead, we adapted our environment to our bodies. If fur kept the wind out, we built walls. If fur kept the cold away, we created fire. If fur repelled insects, we smoked them out or covered our skin with plant mixtures. We became the only animal to remake the world for comfort. Let your breath soften as you imagine this gradual transformation. Picture early humans in the first shelters, lean-tos of branches covered with hide, caves warmed by fire, simple huts sealed with mud. The smell of smoke clings to the air. The ground is warm where people have slept. Shadows dance on walls as flames flicker gently. A child curls against a parent, small fingers gripping bare skin to feel warmth and reassurance. This gesture, this primal seeking of comfort, is older than language, older than civilization, older than any story we know. You have done it too. Every human alive has. We touch for reassurance because bare skin evolved to find safety in one another. Imagine how different human emotion would be if we had fur. Touch would be muffled. Face-to-face expression would be hidden. Skin-to-skin bonding would be rare. Comfort would be distant. Bare skin made love possible in the form we recognize. It allowed the human heart to form attachments through warmth, softness, closeness. This is not poetic exaggeration, it is biological truth. Human bonding is built on skin. Now imagine again the early humans in the cold north, wrapped in furs, gathered in shelters, faces glowing in firelight. They survived not because they had fur, but because they used their minds to replace what evolution had taken. Without fur, they became tool makers. Without fur, they became builders. Without fur, they became storytellers. Bare skin gave humanity its earliest sparks of culture. And yet, the story still continues. We haven't reached the final layer. There is a deeper reason humans remained hairless, one that reaches into genetics, sexual selection, and the future of our species. But we will step into that in the next segment. For now, sink deeper. Feel the softness of your surroundings. Feel your breath settle. Feel your body resting as though curled beside an ancient fire on a long-forgotten night. The fire in your imagination burns lower now, settling into a deep, steady glow. The shadows of early humans fade gently into the dark, becoming outlines, then whispers, then silence. The ancient plains drift away, replaced by something softer, deeper, almost cosmic, as though evolution itself is pulling you inward, inviting you to look beneath the surface. Because the mystery of how humans lost their fur is not just written in migrations, or climate, or culture, or survival. It is also written in the quiet architecture of our genes. Picture a single human cell, so small you cannot see it without magnification, yet vast in its complexity, carrying the delicate instructions for how the body forms, grows, heals, adapts, and remembers. Inside that cell is a sequence of code more ancient than any story, older than any civilization, older even than the first humans. A quiet, spiraling archive of 3 billion letters passed down through countless generations, a memory older than memory. Somewhere within this ancient code lie the remnants of the thick fur coat our ancestors once possessed. But the genes for hair did not simply disappear. They changed. They quieted. They were turned off rather than erased. It is as though evolution dimmed the volume on an entire symphony of fur and allowed a new melody to emerge. The human body still grows hair, fine, soft, almost invisible. And in certain places, hair remains thick and functional. Head hair, eyebrows, eyelashes, pubic hair. Why were these retained in the fine balance of biology and behavior that the story becomes more mysterious? Head hair may protect the scalp from the intensity of the sun. Eyebrows divert sweat away from the eyes. Eyelashes guard against dust, sand, insects. Pubic hair reduces friction, captures pheromones, and protects sensitive skin. Each retained patch speaks of utility, function, compromise. Evolution does not waste effort. It reshapes what works, abandons what does not, and refines what remains. But the most curious detail is not the hair we kept. It is the hair we lost. Why did body hair vanish so extensively when so many mammals rely on it? Why are humans the only primates with skin so exposed? One possibility lingers quietly within the depths of genetic history. A mutation. Not dramatic, not dangerous, not catastrophic, but subtle. A small shift in the genes responsible for hair growth. Such a mutation might have been rare at first, a single child born with less body hair than others. But imagine this child growing into adulthood in the open African savanna, running, sweating, hunting, traveling long distances. Imagine that child's body cooling more efficiently, allowing endurance that others could not match. Over time, that advantage could change everything. Bare skin, once a rarity, became an adaptation. An adaptation became the norm. Now imagine a different force at play: sexual selection. Humans do not choose mates randomly. They are drawn to patterns, signals, features that suggest health, resilience, fertility, or simply familiarity. If early humans began to prefer the look or feel of smoother skin, that preference would guide evolution as powerfully as climate or diet. Some researchers propose that bare skin became a signal, a visible marker of youth, health, and the absence of parasites. Hairlessness may have been selected not just for survival, but for attraction. Imagine an early human touching another's bare shoulder in the glow of firelight, recognizing warmth, smoothness, connection. Imagine how quickly such preferences could shape generations. Sexual selection is often overlooked in discussions of evolution, but it is one of the strongest forces in shaping what a species becomes. The peacock's tail did not evolve for survival. It evolved for attraction. Human skin may have followed a similar path. Not entirely, but partially. The story deepens. Because the skin did not simply become bare, it became communicative. The human body blushes when embarrassed, pales when afraid, flushes when warm, shows goosebumps when touched by emotion, music, or memory. These reactions are not covered by fur and therefore are visible. They reveal emotion. They reveal vulnerability. They reveal authenticity. A furred creature can hide fear. A bare-skinned creature cannot. This transparency shaped social behavior. Humans learned to read each other, to sense intention, to respond empathetically, to communicate silently through the body. Bare skin created a language older than words, a quickening pulse beneath the throat, a slight tremor in the hands, a warming of the cheeks, a change in posture, a shift in breath. These signals helped early humans cooperate, trust, warn, comfort, and understand one another in ways no other primate could. And so hairlessness was not simply a physical trait, it was a social technology, one that paved the way for community, compassion, cooperation, storytelling, culture. But the deepest layer still remains hidden, because there is one more mystery, one that lingers like fog over the long landscape of evolution. When did the human body finally settle into its modern form? When did the last significant hairs fade from our shoulders, our backs, our arms? The answer takes us back roughly 1.5 to 2 million years, to a time when early members of the genus Homo began to appear. Homo erectus was likely the first to be mostly hairless. This species walked upright, ran long distances, used fire, built temporary shelters, and travelled farther than any primate before them. Bare skin made them effective persistence hunters. It kept them cool in the heat of midday. It allowed them to conquer vast regions across Africa and beyond. From there, hairlessness remained stable throughout human evolution. The modern human form was already taking shape. And yet, even now, millions of years later, the story of our skin continues to evolve. In cold regions, clothing changed bodies, not with fur, but with culture. In warm regions, skin became darker to protect against stronger UV. In many climates, body hair re-emerged in small, subtle ways. The faint hair along the forearms, the soft hair along the legs, the fine hair across the stomach and chest, all reminders of a past that refuses to fully disappear. You can see these reminders on yourself if you look closely. Tiny hairs angled gently in the direction of wind and warmth. They do not insulate, but they do sense. They inform. They react. They warn. Bare skin never stopped being a communication tool. It simply changed purpose. The deeper you go into this story, the clearer it becomes that hairlessness was not a single adaptation, but a constellation of forces: heat, endurance, touch, empathy, preference, culture, creativity, genetics, and chance, all working quietly together across hundreds of thousands of years. The result is the body you carry now, the warm, soft, expressive skin that wraps you like a living memory. Take one more slow breath. Feel the air move over your skin. Feel how sensitive it is, how receptive, how alive. Your skin is not an accident. It is the product of a long, mysterious dialogue between humanity and the world it inhabited. We are not simply the naked ape. We are the exposed ape, the vulnerable ape, the adaptive ape, the expressive ape, the connected ape. And now, with this understanding deepening, we move toward the final layers of this ancient transformation. What happened when humans shaped clothing into culture? How did hairlessness influence social norms, art, relationships, and the very meaning of being human? And what does bare skin tell us about the future of our species? We will walk into those questions slowly, gently, in the next segment. For now, let the story settle. Let your breath soften. Let your eyes grow heavy like early humans falling asleep beneath ancient stars. The ancient world you've been walking through grows quieter now, as though evolution itself is pausing to breathe. The air settles. The distant savannas fade into a softer, dimmer landscape, one shaped not just by wind and earth, but by human imagination. Because as humans spread across continents, as bare skin met new climates and new challenges, another transformation began. One not written in genetics, but in minds. Clothing evolved from survival into something deeper. Picture the transition. At first, hides were wrapped purely for warmth. Simple coverings, crude and functional, stitched with bone and sinew, softened by chewing, tanned by smoke and earth. But over time, those coverings changed. They became decorated with beads, dyed with crushed plants, patterned with lines that held meaning, not practical meaning, but symbolic meaning. Bare skin, once a vulnerability, became a canvas. Clothing became a second skin, not just protection from cold or wind, but an expression of identity. Imagine an early human wearing a necklace of small shells gathered from a distant shore. A necklace carried across miles, a badge of memory, of story, of belonging. Another might wear a hide painted with ochre, a spiral representing a myth only their people know. Clothing became a language. Bare skin made that language possible. If humans had fur, clothing would not adorn the body, it would disappear beneath it. Instead, the human form became a stage for art. Now, imagine a group gathered at twilight around a fire at the edge of a forest. Their clothing rustles softly as they sit. Patterns catch the flicker of flame. Dots, lines, spirals, handprints, each symbol communicating something unspoken. In the firelight, their bare faces glow, their arms gleam with pigment, their hands are marked with ash or clay, their hair is braided with feathers or grasses. Nothing about this scene is accidental. Bare skin transformed how humans presented themselves to one another, and how they understood beauty. It is tempting to think that beauty is subjective, that preferences change with time, culture, fashion. But beneath those shifting layers lies something ancient, a sensitivity to shape, to movement, to warmth, to expression. Bare skin made these details visible. It amplified subtle cues that other species hide beneath fur. A warm flush on the face signals trust. A relaxed posture signals safety. A gentle touch signals connection. A rhythmic sway of the body signals attraction. These signals shaped the earliest forms of courtship, slow, subtle rituals performed in firelight long before language or music emerged. Imagine two early humans sitting near one another, eyes quietly studying the soft glow on the other's bare shoulders. Not speaking, not rushing, just sensing, through skin, through breath, through presence. Bare skin allowed humans to perceive each other emotionally. Most mammals choose partners based on dominance, territory, pheromones, and instinct. Humans added something new, empathy. You can almost see it in the memory of that ancient night. Someone laughs softly, their face warming, their shoulders relaxing. Someone else watches, their own skin flushing slightly in response. This gentle, emotional awareness grew slowly into something profound. It created the foundations of relationships, not just mating, but partnership, not just reproduction, but affection. Bare skin allowed humans to care for each other in a way most animals never need to. A mother soothing a crying infant by pressing the baby's cheek against her warm chest. A companion wrapping their arms around someone shivering in the early morning cold. A group gathering together to rest, to share warmth, to comfort one another after a difficult day. Touch became medicine long before medicine existed. Even today, your skin carries that ancient memory. The way a simple touch can calm your breath. The way warmth can ease your mind. The way closeness can dissolve fear. These reactions are older than civilization. They are older than humanity. They began with the loss of fur. But evolution didn't stop there. Bare skin changed not only how humans connected, but how humans imagined themselves. When the body became visible, so did the concept of self. Early humans began painting bodies before they painted caves, decorating themselves before they decorated objects, telling stories through skin before telling stories through words. Imagine the earliest rituals, gatherings under night skies, fires illuminating painted limbs, bodies moving in simple rhythm, shadows dancing along stone walls. The bare human form became the center of myth. In some cultures, painted skin symbolized transformation. In others, it reflected identity: hunter, healer, teacher, elder. In others still, skin painted with ash or ochre represented journeys between life and death, between the known and the mysterious. All of this emerged because humans could see themselves. Fur-covered bodies cannot be decorated with this level of symbolism. They cannot display identity through color or shape. They cannot reveal emotion with such clarity. Hairlessness opened the door to self-awareness, and self-awareness opened the door to story. Now imagine a moment tens of thousands of years later. The first humans arriving in Europe, walking through forests heavy with winter breath. Their bodies wrapped in furs, but their faces still bare, still expressive, still human. They enter a cave for shelter. Inside, the darkness is vast, a sleeping giant waiting to awaken. They light torches, the flames flicker. Shadows leap across the walls. Someone presses their hand against the cold stone, a bare hand, then paints around it with red ochre. The light catches the pigment. The silhouette becomes a declaration. I was here. I am alive. I am human. Without fur, the handprint is unmistakable. Its shape, its lines, its texture, impossible to hide. Now imagine that same person turning toward a companion. Their eyes meet in the half-light. Their faces soften. No words, but something passes between them. A moment of shared recognition. We are here together. That moment is the root of human intimacy, of culture, of meaning. Bare skin was the beginning of it all, because hairlessness reshaped not just the body, but the human mind. Humans learned to interpret the smallest details. A crease in the forehead, a widening of the eyes, a tremble in the breath, a flush in the cheeks, a softening of the shoulders. These subtleties became the grammar of emotion. No other mammal communicates with expressions that subtle. No other mammal depends on empathy for survival. No other mammal relies on touch for psychological health. Bare skin made humans social on a level rare in the animal world. It made cruelty harder to hide. It made affection easier to feel. It made community not just useful, but necessary. And over generations, this need for connection sparked the earliest forms of morality. The sense that we should help, protect, comfort, and care for one another. Without fur, humans could not survive alone, and so they chose to survive together. This choice shaped evolution in ways far beyond biology. It shaped ethics. It shaped compassion. It shaped the human heart. The story now moves into its final layers. The merging of biology, culture, emotion, and meaning. Because the absence of fur did more than shape bodies, it shaped souls. And that is where we will go in the next segment, toward the quiet conclusion of this long evolutionary journey. For now, let your breath slow again. Let your thoughts soften, and imagine yourself resting beneath the same sky that once witnessed the first humans become themselves. The night surrounding the ancient world grows even softer now, as though evolution itself is dimming the lanterns one by one. The shadows stretch longer, gentler, quieter. The fire in your imagination burns low but steady, its glow reaching only a small circle around the people who gather near it, as humans have always done, drawn together by warmth, by light, by the simple comfort of presence. In this quiet perimeter of firelight, humanity finishes becoming itself, because hairlessness, for all its biological implications, was never just a physical change. It was a transformation that seeped into every corner of human existence, shaping how we love, how we fear, how we express, how we mourn, how we hope, how we imagine. The bare human body was not a blank slate. It was an invitation to adorn, to alter, to decorate, to protect, to reveal, to conceal, to tell stories. Picture early humans long after they had first walked upright, long after the savannas had shaped them, long after they learned to migrate across continents. They stand now before wide rivers in Asia. They move through forests in Europe. They travel along coasts in Australia. They cross frozen land bridges into the Americas. Their lives are woven into the rhythms of ice ages and warm ages, of expansions and retreats, of hunger and abundance. And their bare skin remains at the center of their identity. No matter where they go, no matter what they encounter, their skin holds them in the same way, as individuals and as members of a group. Because human skin, unlike the fur of other mammals, shows belonging. Imagine a small band traveling together through a valley surrounded by stone cliffs. Their clothing varies. Some wear hides, some wear plant fibers, some wear nothing at all in warm regions, but their bodies display the marks of their particular culture. lines of paint on the cheeks, bands of ash across the chest, handprints on the forearms, small scars intentionally created as symbols of adulthood or achievement. These patterns live on bare skin, not on fur. Bare skin made culture visible, and because it was visible, it could be shared, taught, passed on. Clothing changed with climate, tools changed with innovation, but markings on the skin, those stayed deeply symbolic across thousands of years. You can almost imagine a young human preparing for a ritual of passage. They sit near the fire, while an elder mixes pigments from minerals and plants. The elder's hands move gently, painting slow, deliberate symbols across the youth's arms and face. The marks glow softly in the firelight, red for courage, white for spirit, yellow for memory. When the youth stands, the entire group sees the symbols gleaming on their bare skin. Those symbols are identity. They are meaning. They are story. If humans had fur, this ritual would not exist. And so, hairlessness shapes tradition in ways deeper than we often realize. But bare skin also shaped something else, something subtle, something psychological, something essential to the human experience. Vulnerability. More than any other mammal, the human body is exposed to cold, to heat, to injury, to gaze. And vulnerability changes behavior. A vulnerable creature must choose between fear and trust. Humans chose trust. Not with everyone, not always, but enough to create social groups stronger than any one individual. Without fur, humans could not easily hide emotion. A flushed face, a tremor in the hands, a tightening of the throat. These signs betray feelings that our ancestors would have preferred to conceal. But because these signals were visible, the people around them learned to respond, to comfort, to support, to protect. Empathy became a survival strategy, and across thousands of years, it became a defining trait of our species. You can almost picture a group gathered after a loss, the body of a loved one wrapped respectfully in hide or placed gently into the earth. Faces glow with grief in the torchlight. Bare shoulders tremble slightly. Skin flushes with emotion. Tears reflect flickering flame. And human hands, the same hands that once painted bodies and carved tools and stroked infants, reach out to hold one another. Touch as comfort is one of the oldest and most universal human behaviors. It exists because the body's surface is sensitive. It exists because the body is bare. A furred creature might nuzzle or groom, but the intensity of human touch, its emotional resonance, its psychological weight, is different. Bare skin made comfort an art, and comfort made humanity resilient. There is another dimension to this vulnerability, something evolutionary yet deeply emotional. Hairlessness changed how humans recognized age. In most mammals, age is hidden beneath fur. A young body and an old body look similar at a glance. But humans, with bare skin, show age openly. Wrinkles, lines, sunspots, the softening of flesh, the thinning of hair, the shifting of posture. A young human and an old human are visibly different. This visibility shaped culture. It gave rise to reverence for elders, compassion for children, and recognition of roles across a lifetime. Bare skin revealed the arc of life. It taught humans to understand time not just in seasons, but in faces. It created memory that was not just spoken, but seen. Imagine a group before a fire, elders with weathered skin sitting beside children whose skin glows smooth in the flames. The contrast tells a story of generations, losses, teachings, journeys, continuity. The loss of fur created a visible timeline on the human body. It made aging sacred. And so, the human story is not just written in archaeology, in fossilized bones, or ancient tools. It is written in skin. The skin of today leads back to the skin of the first humans. The skin of elders mirrors the skin of ancestors long gone. The skin of children mirrors the beginning of the species itself. But hairlessness created one more profound transformation, perhaps the most human of all. It made the body self-aware, not merely conscious, but self-conscious. Humans became the only creatures who looked at themselves and formed opinions. Am I attractive? Am I strong? Am I healthy? Am I desirable? How do others see me? How should I present myself? This awareness shaped identity. It shaped fashion. It shaped behavior. It shaped art. It also shaped insecurity, an emotional side effect of exposure. When the body is bare, judgment becomes possible. But judgment, paradoxically, also inspired improvement. Because humans judged themselves, they sought better clothing, better tools, better shelter. A furred creature is content with what evolution gives it. A hairless creature seeks to create what evolution did not. Hairlessness was the first spark of ambition, the desire to become more than what the body alone provides. Look at the human world today, the skyscrapers, the clothing industries, the mirrors, the cosmetics, the tattoos, the jewelry, the self-expression, the self-presentation. All of it traces back to the same moment, when fur disappeared and skin was revealed. And beneath this long history, beneath all the biology, beneath the psychology and culture and art, there is a profound, quiet truth. Hairlessness made humans emotional beings. It made us responsive to warmth, to cold, to touch, to danger, to safety. It made us sensitive, physically and mentally. Without fur, we notice every breeze, every shift in air, every brush of contact. We feel the world directly. And because we feel the world, we imagine it. We interpret it. We build stories about it. We dream about it. The skin became the gateway to consciousness. The final layers of this story are not about biology at all, but about meaning. Because hairlessness did not just shape the human body, it shaped the human soul. It shaped how we love, how we fear, how we hope, how we dream. It shaped our relationship to the world, to ourselves, to each other. And now, you and I are approaching the end of this long journey. In the next segment, we will enter the conclusion, a soft, philosophical reflection on what hairlessness really means for humanity's place in nature, in history, and in the quiet stillness of this very moment. For now, rest a little. Let the stories settle. Feel your breath slow again. Feel your skin warm beneath whatever covers you. Feel the ancient echo of millions of years flow gently through your body. The fire in your mind burns lower now, so low that its glow feels less like flame and more like memory. The figures gathered around it, early humans wrapped in hides, painted in ochre, faces soft with fatigue and tenderness, fade gently, as though dissolving into the long night that surrounds them. The world grows quiet. The grass stops whispering. The wind drifts slower. Even the stars seem to dim, as if preparing to close their heavy eyes. You are standing at the end of a long evolutionary trail, a trail that began with furred creatures sleeping in forest canopies and ended with humans wrapped in stories, in firelight, in the warmth of one another. The question that began this journey still lingers gently in the air. How did humans lose their fur? But by now, you can feel that the answer was never just one thing. It was never a single mutation, a single climate shift, a single behavioral change. It was a long conversation between biology and environment, between vulnerability and ingenuity, between the pressures of survival and the hidden stirrings of emotion. Hairlessness did not happen to humanity. Humanity happened because of hairlessness. You can almost imagine the very first moment an early ancestor realized how different they were. Standing in the heat of the African sun, skin gleaming with sweat, feeling the air move across a body no longer insulated by fur. Perhaps it felt frightening. Perhaps it felt liberating. Perhaps it felt like stepping into a new world, one in which sensation became a form of intelligence. When fur vanished, the world touched humans more directly, more intimately, more truthfully. This exposure changed everything. You breathe slowly, letting the idea settle. Bare skin created a body that could feel and a mind that could interpret feeling. A creature with fur feels only pressure, temperature, the simplest forms of contact. A creature without fur feels texture, subtle vibration, the warmth of another body, the coolness of stone, the direction of wind, the faintest touch of affection or fear. This sensitivity was the beginning of human awareness. Picture early humans standing together, bare shoulders brushing, soft warmth radiating between them. They learned to comfort one another with touch. They learned to communicate through expression. They learned to read emotion in the movement of skin. No other species relies so heavily on skin to communicate what cannot be spoken. And because humans could feel each other, they could understand each other. Empathy grew its first roots in exposed flesh. Many thousands of years later, that empathy would become the foundation of morality, religion, art, community, and civilization. Bare skin made humans compassionate beings, but it also made humans innovative beings. Fur protects from cold. Without it, humans were forced to build their own protection. The first hide coverings, the first stitched clothing, the first windbreak shelters, the first walls, the first traps and tools, the first fires tended carefully against the long dark. Hairlessness demanded creativity. Creativity led to technology. Technology led to culture. Culture led to the world you live inside today. And yet, beneath all this evolution, beneath the tools and shelters and the long migrations that carried humanity across the globe, another transformation was quietly unfolding. A transformation of meaning. Without fur, the human body became a surface where identity could be expressed. Pigment, jewelry, tattoos, clothing, adornment, ritual paint, scar patterns, symbols. The body became the first story humans told. A body covered in fur is hidden, anonymous, defined by nature alone. A bare body is personal and expressive. Skin turned humans into artists. You can almost picture those early artists, kneeling beside a cave wall, their bare forearms streaked with colour, their fingers gently pressing ochre into the creases of another's skin. Lines that represented courage, dots that represented tribe, swirls that represented spirit, hands marked with pigment and pressed onto stone, the oldest signatures of humanity. Those handprints still remain today, tens of thousands of years old, their fingers spread as though reaching out from another time. A message whispered across eons. We were here. We felt the world. We were like you. Hairlessness made those messages possible. If humans had fur, those ancient walls would be empty. The entire history of art would look different. The entire story of human expression would look different. The bare human body, soft, vulnerable, sensitive, became a vessel for imagination. And because of that, hairlessness shaped not only the past, but the future. Think of how you recognize someone today. By their eyes, by their mouth, by their skin, by their face. If humans had fur, identity would be masked. But we are seen. We are recognizable. We are individuals. Hairlessness created the modern human sense of self. Now breathe slowly again as the story gently folds into the wider fabric of evolution. There is something poetic about the fact that humans, the animal with the greatest capacity for vulnerability, empathy, creativity, and self-awareness, are also the animal whose skin is most exposed. Evolution does not plan. It does not intend. It does not assign meaning. And yet, the meaning is there if you know where to look. Hairlessness became connection, comfort, communication, culture, identity, self-awareness. It turned early humans into a species that needed one another, not just to survive, but to feel whole. And in that need, the greatest human strengths emerged: cooperation, compassion, parental care, romantic attachment, group identity, mutual aid, shared hope. Bare skin made humans social in a way no other animal is. The loss of fur was the beginning of the human heart. You can almost imagine the very last moment in evolution when fur still clung to the early human form, patchy, thinning, fading. A moment when the world held its breath, watching a species become something new. Not a creature defined by instinct, but a creature defined by meaning. And now, here you are, thousands of generations later, your own bare skin resting beneath soft blankets, your body warmed by creature comforts your ancestors couldn't imagine. You feel your skin touching fabric. You feel the air moving across your cheek. You feel your breath sliding gently from your chest. Your body is the final chapter of this ancient story. Every sensation you feel right now, warmth, softness, pressure, relaxation, is part of an evolutionary legacy more profound than fur could ever offer. Hairlessness made you sensitive to the world. Sensitivity made you human. We are nearly at the end now, nearly at the quiet closing that ties this story into a single thread. The final segment will weave everything together and guide you into the soft silence where ancient stories fade into sleep. The story grows quiet now, quieter than the distant winds that once shaped our ancestors, quieter than the crackle of their fires, quieter even than the soft breath of a newborn sleeping against a parent's chest. Everything you've walked through tonight, the long migrations, the ancient climates, the genetics and rituals and quiet moments of early humanity, begins to settle like dust drifting down in a sunbeam. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to uncover, nothing to solve. Just the slow exhale of a story older than memory and deeper than words. You can almost feel the presence of those early humans now, not as shadows, not as distant ancestors, but as something quiet and familiar, waiting at the edges of your awareness. Their bare skin glowing faintly by firelight, their hands brushing gently against one another, their breath soft and steady in the cool night air, their faces illuminated with warmth, with vulnerability, with the ancient, simple desire to be close, to be safe, to be seen. That desire never left us. It travelled with us through millions of years, through changing landscapes, through changing bodies, through the rise and fall of entire ages. It remains with you now as you lie where you are, warm, quiet, safe, listening to a story that stretches from the first humans to the final breath of this night. Let your body relax now, inch by inch, as though the ancient world is tucking you gently into its memory. Your shoulders loosen. Your jaw softens. Your breath becomes slow and warm. Your thoughts drift like tiny embers lifting from a dying fire. Not in a rush, not all at once, just a slow, peaceful settling. Like early humans curling against one another as the stars wheeled overhead. Like firelight fading into quiet darkness. Like the night wrapping itself gently around sleep. Let the last echoes of the story fade into silence. You don't need to hold on to anything. Not the science, not the history, not the explanations, not even the mystery. Just rest. Feel your skin soften against the fabric around you. Feel your breath deepen as your body becomes heavier, warmer, still. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to remember. The world can turn without you for now. The night can watch over itself. Your body knows how to sleep. You only need to get out of its way. Let the ancient quiet take you gently by the hand. Let it guide you downward, inward, into that soft, wordless place where dreams begin. Sleep is not far now. It's right there, just beyond the next breath. Let it come. Let your body surrender. Let your mind loosen. Let the night fold around you like the first blanket woven by human hands long, long ago. Good night. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. Sleep in the knowledge that you belong to a story older than stars and gentler than dawn. The fire has gone quiet. The world has grown soft. And you are ready to rest. Good night.